And we're going to do that right now. Get back to your phone calls after that at 888-957-9570. Baldy, what's good? How are you?
Well, everything's good. I mean, we're in week 8 here. It's like the halfway point practically. So I'm holding up good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be right there at SoFi Stadium this weekend calling this game, the 49ers and the Rams. And so, who's a contender, who's a pretender at this point? It kind of feels like that to me amongst these two teams.
Yeah, I like that thought, and I also wonder, because we're still waiting for official word on Deebo Samuel, but I wonder your thought on how different the 49er offense would be if they got to do it without Deebo.
Well, they from the outside, they just don't look as dynamic. They don't have a player that you can hand it to or you can throw a bubble screen to or whatever, and he can make a house call on you. Like that threat isn't there. They don't really have Ayuk is a good player. He doesn't really present that type of issue. Kittle can do that, but we haven't seen much of that this year. And then maybe Christian McCaffrey can certainly do that. He has done that. And maybe he has to pick up the slack because I would think that he'd be a lot further along in the playbook and the checks and the protections and things he needs to know to stay on the field. So you might get some of that from him, but we really haven't seen much of that from Deebo. Maybe a couple of plays, this year, but we really haven't seen much of it like we did a year ago.
And with no Kyle Juszczyk, and we know that Kyle Shanahan loves to run that 21 personnel, how do they account for no fullback, and do they use Christian McCaffrey different, knowing that you don't have a typical fullback in the backfield?
Well, McCaffrey comes out of an offense in Carolina where they really, Matt Rule did have a two-back offense, but they didn't do it very much. Like, he's a good player, a really good player, whether he's in a two-back system or whether he's just a single back and you're running just your inside zones, and your option type plays. Like, he's still good with that. He doesn't need a lead blocker to be effective, is what I'm saying. So, you might see a lot more two tight ends than what we have seen. And so I think they'll adjust because they could put somebody in Kyle's place, but it's not going to be the same. He's just a unique player, the way that he's able to really block on the run and on the move and to find a different color jersey to go smack.
Baldy, on Monday Night Football, RG3 said the problem with the 49er offense, and I don't know why this would be new, but he said every single person on the offense has to be absolutely perfect because of the limitations of Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you buy that? And if you do, why has that not been the case in previous years?
Well, I don't buy it. I don't care what RG3 says. If he believes that, he believes it, but I don't believe it. They played how many games without, Trent Williams out there at left tackle? They've overcome the loss of George Kittle at times, and Jimmy, they've won a lot of football games. So I know that's an easy thing to say. Like, it's got to be absolutely perfect for them to, but it's rarely perfect. It just is. Like, you have to, Jimmy has to have some freelance ability. He's got to be able to trust his protection and make his throws, regardless of who's out there. So, I don't know. I've seen this team go on a march without key players before. So they have done it before, and they've beaten the Rams, shorthanded before. So I just think it's a question of it's a mindset. Physically, they have beaten the Rams up. That's why they beat them during the regular season. That's why they had the lead going into the fourth quarter in the championship game last year. Physically, when they're playing the way they're capable of playing, they could beat anybody.
And the Rams right now battered on the offensive line. How much is this a Nick Bosa game, and for the Niners defense to be able to exert their will in the trenches and make Matthew Stafford uncomfortable? Because we know he'll give you a couple if you pressure him.
Well, if I was Nick Bosa, I would think that every single pass play, I'm going to have a chance to win. He's got to have a guy out there, Lark Jackson. I don't know if this is his first start, but it's one of maybe one or two with no boom down. So they're down a bunch of numbers on their offensive line. The defense knows that this is their game. They have to dominate this game because when you do, Stafford is going to give you 2 or 3 chances to take the ball away. It's just the way it is. He's going to stay in there. He's going to take his shots. He's going to throw the ball up, and you're going to have a chance to go get it. And it really does start with Nick. He's got to be dominant. This guy in front of him I'm sure they're going to chip him. They're going to do all the things that Nick Bosa is used to seeing. He expects that. That doesn't matter. You got to beat the chips. You got to beat the double teams. You have to beat those things. And if they're committing 2 guys to Nick Bosa, somebody else is probably going to be one-on-one. They got to win. And in the run game and the pass game, like they feed off of negative plays. It's not just sacks. It's runs that go for negative yardage. It's the holding calls that gets called and they put them behind the sticks. Like, they have to assert themselves. Whoever's healthy up there, like, they've got to go win this game. That's where it starts for them.
Brian Baldinger with us here, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game on a Football Friday. Hey, Baldy, when I watch the Rams, especially this year, one thing I don't understand is no matter how good a player is, I feel like if you know that that's where they're going to go, you should have a pretty good chance to stop it. It's been Cooper Kupp and nothing else so far for this Rams offense. But most of the time, he still puts up numbers. Do you feel like the 49ers, even as good as Cooper is, in knowing that he's essentially their only weapon, shouldn't they be able to have success stopping that?
Well, I mean, but you could go back to the Super Bowl game, the final drive of the game, and it was all Cooper Kupp, including the game winner. I mean, at that point, OBJ is hurt. Van Jeff, it's Cooper and everybody and nobody else. And whether it's a 4th down run, whether it's the go-ahead touchdown, I mean, they couldn't stop him, and they knew that's the only guy they had to stop. So because the timing and the type of routes that Cooper Kupp runs and his vision to see where the double is coming from, how you're doubling, if you're trying to, beat him up at the line of scrimmage, he's got an answer for just about anything that you do. And so I don't think it's enough to beat the 49ers. Tyler Higbee's a really good player. They're going to get Van Jefferson back. They haven't had that second option from the receiver this year. Allen Robinson has not been that guy. The timing is not good with him and the quarterback. He doesn't beat man coverage well. So to me, maybe Van Jefferson makes a difference. He's a very good route runner. His dad's a wide receiver coach in his business. He's been well taught. But the ball's going to Cooper Kupp every 3rd down, red zone. It's going to him. And it's a question of, can you stop it? Can you defend it?
And Jimmy Ward will be pegged to be the guy to stop it, moving from safety into the nickel corner spot. How tough is that as a secondary player to go from a traditional safety spot to now having to play in the nickel?
Well, it's hard. That was K'Wan Williams for a long time. That was his spot. Obviously, he's not there anymore. He was great at it. The one thing I would look at Jimmy, I mean, literally every play, if Cooper's in the slot, and they move him all over the place, so it's hard to set your double teams and hard to key on him. But if I was Jimmy, I'd be looking around, going, "Okay, who's helping me here? Where's it? Is it Freddie helping me out? Is it Ufanga helping me out? Who's helping me on this play?" Because honestly, it's nobody can really handle that position against a guy like Kupp, just because of the way that he changes gears, changes directions, gets you to think he's doing one thing, he does another. I mean, no one person in this whole league can really shut that down.
Baldy, look, the 49ers have shown flaws so far this year, but I look up and down the NFC, and let's use last night as an example. I mean, it just does not look like it's going to happen for Tom Brady this year. What do you see there, and with the roster the 49ers have, is there any excuse for them to not end up in the playoffs?
No, not in a seven-man, postseason tournament. There is no excuse. I mean, that's just, everybody needs to be held accountable with the general manager, the head coach at the very beginning, and the quarterback if they don't make the playoffs. I mean, it's just diluted. The Bucs are just a very flawed team. In the second half, they had no answer to stop the Ravens' offense. They gained 300 yards of offense. They couldn't get them off the field. They put them in a meat grinder and they just whipped them physically. And then they just say all the option football, like they had no answer for it. I don't think they're going to rebound because they can't block the edges in any part of the run game, and so they're the worst rushing team in the league. And Brady dropping back to throw it right now it's not the answer. So, and defensively, they just lost Shaq Barrett, their best pass rusher. I mean, I just think that team isn't going anywhere. But to answer your question, look, Minnesota's out there with a good record, but they could beat Minnesota. They know exactly how to beat Minnesota, if they would ever face them. Seattle is really in a game this weekend against the Giants, and you're going to find out everything you need to know about Seattle. They're going to play without DK Metcalf. I think it's going to be a problem for them, just not having that presence out there for the next couple of weeks. I believe in what Gino is doing, but I believe the 49ers are a better football team than Seattle. So I'm just eliminating these teams that the 49ers are better on. But 3 and 4, you got to start stacking your wins pretty soon, and it might as well be this Sunday.
I can't believe that Seattle and the Giants is a big game this weekend, but you're right, Baldy. It is quietly, it's become a big game. Niners heading into the bye. Should we look for Christian McCaffrey to have a heavy workload knowing he's going to have a week off?
They used a committee last week. I think if McCaffrey gets off to a start like he did last week, which was pretty darn good. I mean, he was gashing him for 8-9 yards up the middle on a couple of those inside runs. Like, I think if he gets off to a hot start and you see success, you might see a heavy workload, knowing that, A, he's been healthy all year. He's had a healthy workload to begin with in Carolina. And I think that, you can rest him after this and get him ready for the second half surge. So I think if he gets off to a hot start, you might see a whole lot of Christian McCaffrey.
Baldy, great stuff as always, especially on a football Friday. It's such a treat to have you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, man? Have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
I look forward to Sunday afternoon. Believe me, I can't wait to get there.